Hello and welcome to my channel. If you enjoy crochet and ghost stories, you've come to the right place. So sit back and enjoy. Today's story is America's Most Haunted Plantation, the Myrtles. According to the Smithsonian Institute, the Myrtles Plantation, located 3 miles north of St. Francisville, Louisiana, rivals the Whaley House for the title of the most haunted house in the United States. Built in 1794 by General David Bradford, the plantation rests on the site of an ancient Native American burial ground. Since it was constructed, the plantation has been the location for at least 10 violent deaths. Throughout the years, owners and their guests have fled the house in the middle of the night, terrified by the appearance of frightening ghosts. The entities continue to be seen by visitors. With the recent popularity of reality programming and documentaries on the paranormal, the stories of the Myrtles Plantation has been shown numerous times on television. The tragic events that set the haunting in motion began when Bradford's daughter, Sarah Matilda, married a young judge named Clark Woodruff. Although the Woodruffs were happily married and their union had produced 2 daughters, when Sarah Matilda was carrying their 3rd child, Clark began an extramarital affair with Chloe, one of the house slaves. Although Judge Woodruff had a reputation for integrity in matters of the law, those who knew him personally were aware that he was promiscuous. At first, Chloe tried to deny the sexual demands of her master, but she knew that if she fought against Woodruff's unwanted advances, she would be sent to work in the fields, and she much preferred being assigned to the duties of the mansion. While Sarah Matilda suffered through her pregnancy and gave birth to another daughter, Chloe provided the release for her master's sexual needs. Eventually, when the judge grew tired of her and chose another house slave as his new mistress, Chloe feared that she would lose her position as a servant in the plantation house and be ordered to work in the fields doing hard manual labor. She desperately hoped that she might somehow find a way to win back Woodruff's affections and not be in danger of being sent to do brutal work in the cotton fields. One evening, she hovered around the Woodruffs as she worked. She listened for any mention of her name and any clue about her fate. The judge grew irritated by her presence and accused her of eavesdropping on a private family conversation with his wife. As punishment, the Woodruffs ordered her overseers to cut off one of Chloe's ears. From that time on, Chloe wore a green headscarf with an earring pinned to it to hide her missing ear. Disfigured and dismayed, Chloe felt certain that she would be banished to the cotton fields and life in the crude cabins and barracks of the other slaves. That was when the clever Chloe came up with what she believed might be the perfect plan that would guarantee her status as a house slave and keep her out of the fields. Since she was a very young girl, she had been wise in the ways of herbs and potions. She knew that it was possible to mix up a potion that would make her master love her again, but it would be difficult to find a way to make him drink it. After much thought and deliberation, she devised a much better way to use her expertise with herbs. She would bake a birthday cake for the Woodruff's oldest daughter and place oleander into the mix. If oleander is used in large doses, it is poisonous. But Chloe thought that if she only used a small amount of extract in the mix, the family would only become ill. Then the loyal maiden servant that she was, she would nobly nurse them back to health. Tragically, Chloe inadvertently sprinkled too much oleander into the cake mix. Sarah Matilda and two of her daughters became extremely ill and died within hours after the birthday party. Because neither the judge nor the baby ate any of the poison cake, they survived the mysterious illness that struck down the rest of the family. Stricken with grief and ashamed of what she had done, Chloe confided in another slave that she had only intended to make the family ill, so that she would be one to take care of them. Chloe made a poor choice for a confidant. Rather than keeping the secret, the woman tattled to her fellow slaves that their mistress's death and the death of her two daughters had not been due to some mysterious sudden illness. Chloe had deliberately poisoned them. An enraged mob made up of both the Woodruff slaves and their white neighbors chased Chloe into the surrounding woods, where they were caught and she hanged. Her body later was cut down, weighed with rocks, and thrown into the river. Judge Woodruff closed off the room where the birthday party had been held and never again allowed it to be used during his lifetime. Judge Woodruff was unable to enforce his decree for long, for he was murdered a few years later. The ghost of Chloe has been sighted both inside and outside the plantation house. She is most often seen wearing a green headscarf that is wrapped like a turban around her head, with an earring pinned over her missing ear. Her ghost has also been responsible for stealing earrings from many guests over the 200 years since her hanging. John and Tita Moss, the current owners of the Myrtle Plantation, have converted the place into a bed and breakfast. And Hester Eby, who manages house tours of the mansion and grounds, states that the haunting phenomena continues unabated. Moss even photographed a shadowy image of Chloe standing near the house. According to Eby and members of the staff, resident ghosts frequently report included those of the two poisoned Woodruff girls, who were often heard playing and running in the halls. The spirits of the girls have also been seen playing on the mansion's veranda and seated at the table in the children's dining room. Perhaps they are eternally partaking of that last terrible meal that featured a deadly treat of poison cake. Many guests have heard babies crying, even though there are no babies or infants in the mansion. Some have heard the sounds of a crying infant and the ghost of a French woman who wanders from room to room looking for someone. Maybe she's looking for the baby. The ghost of a woman in a black skirt floats a foot off the floor and is seen dancing to music that cannot be heard by the living. Some have seen a man who was stabbed to death in the hallway over an argument concerning a gambling debt. A more active spirit is said to be that of an overseer who was robbed and killed in 1927. The spirit angrily demands that guests leave the place and return to their homes. Numerous guests have been awakened by a pianist who plays the grand piano on the first floor but immediately stops if someone enters the room. Many guests have heard the sounds of footsteps on the stairs and have seen the image of a man struggling to reach the upstairs hallway. Throughout the years, many residents and their employees have heard their names called by invisible entities. This particular haunting phenomena seems to ebb and flow, intensifying and then lessening in its manifestation. Now that the place is also a bed and breakfast hotel, Eby said that the staff knows when they're going to have a bad night by the number of guests who call it by midnight and demand to leave the place at once. Many believe there is a candle carried by Sarah Matilda as she searches for her errant husband Dowling and one of the servant girls. One man who was hired to greet the guest upon arrival at the bed and breakfast became fascinated by a woman who approached his post dressed in white, old-fashioned dress. Thinking she was merely getting in the mood for her stay in the old southern plantation by dressing like an antebellum belle, he was a bit miffed when she seemed unresponsive to his cheery greeting. So, let me ask you, do you believe in ghosts? If so, write in the description box below some of your experiences. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.